Today's topic of discussion is oculomotor, trochlear and abducens nerve. You can see in this slide, this one is oculomotor nerve, this one is trochlear, and this one is abducens nerve. You can see here abducens supply only the lateral rectus muscle, and trochlear it is supplying only the superior oblique muscle, and rest of the extraocular muscles are supplied by third cranial nerve or the oculomotor nerve. Now in this slide, you can see third, fourth and sixth cranial nerves showing in red color, all are motor. So third and fourth, that is oculomotor and the trochlear nerve situated in the midbrain, and third cranial nerve, it has also parasympathetic component that is coming from Edinger-Westphal nucleus. That is also called accessory nucleus of third cranial nerve. So that component is general visceral efferent. And sixth cranial nerve is situated in the lower part of the pons. And so third, fourth and sixth cranial nerves are somatic efferent nerve. Now come to the third cranial nerve or the oculomotor nerve. It has two functional components. One is somatomotor and second one is visceromotor fibers. So somatomotor fibers, they supply all the extraocular muscles except superior oblique, which is supplied by trochlear nerve, and lateral rectus is supplied by sixth cranial nerve or the abducens nerve. So you can remember LR6, SO4, and rest of the extraocular muscles are supplied by oculomotor nerve. And visceromotor fibers have parasympathetic component, and preganglionic fibers of this parasympathetic component coming from Edinger-Westphal nucleus, that is accessory cranial nuclei of oculomotor nerve. And postganglionic fibers will come from ciliary ganglion, and these postganglionic fibers will supply sphincter pupillae and ciliaris muscle. You can see third cranial nerve is coming from the midbrain. After passing through the superior orbital fissure, it divides into upper division and lower division. Upper division, it supplies superior rectus and levator palpebris superioris, and lower division, it supplies medial rectus, inferior rectus and inferior oblique muscle. Now parasympathetic motor fibers will come through the nerve to inferior oblique. So this part is ciliary ganglion. Postganglionic fibers are short ciliary nerves. So these short ciliary nerves will supply ciliaris muscle and sphincter pupillae. Now position of third cranial nerve is in the floor of aqueduct of Sylvius or ventral to aqueduct of Sylvius in the midbrain at the level of superior colliculus. This is aqueduct of Sylvius, and this area called periaqueductal gray matter. So oculomotor nerve, the nucleus is situated in the periaqueductal gray matter ventral to aqueduct of Sylvius, and the somatomotor component is divided into number of subgroups of cells or nuclei, and visceromotor component is Edinger-Westphal nucleus. It is also called accessory nuclei of cranial nerve 3. It acts as a preganglionic neuron. So this nerve emerges from medial side of cerebral peduncle and passes between posterior cerebral artery and superior cerebellar artery. So then it will pass through the, so this part is cavernous sinus, then superior orbital fissure. So here it divides into upper and lower division. So this upper division is supplying superior rectus and levator palpebrae superioris, and lower division supplying medial rectus, inferior rectus, and inferior oblique muscles. So red color showing the main oculomotor nucleus, and green color is the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So from Edinger-Westphal nucleus, you will get preganglionic parasympathetic fibers. So in the anterior part of cavernous sinus, it divides into upper and lower divisions. Then it enters into orbit through the superior orbital fissure within the common tendinous ring, and in between upper and lower division, you will get nasociliary nerve. So nasociliary nerve intervenes between two divisions. The smaller upper division passes above the optic nerve. Here you will get optic nerve on the inferior surface of superior rectus. Then it passes through the superior rectus to supply the levator palpebrae superioris muscle. And larger inferior division, it passes below the optic nerve, and it gives three branches which supply medial rectus, inferior rectus, and inferior oblique muscle. Now nerve to inferior oblique. So this one is nerve to inferior oblique, gives rise to motor root or parasympathetic component to the ciliary ganglion. So this one is ciliary ganglion. Postganglionic fibers from the ciliary ganglion run through the short ciliary nerves and supply sphincter pupillae and ciliaris muscle. Now these third cranial nerve have central connections. So oculomotor nuclear complex receives connections from corticonuclear, it is also called corticobulbar fibers arising from Brodmann's area 4 and 6 of both cerebral hemisphere. So another connection is medial longitudinal fasciculus, in short MLF, by which third nerve is connected with the nuclei of 4th, 6th, and 8th cranial nerves for coordination of movements of eye. So third connection through the tectobulbar tract, by which it is connected to visual cortex through the superior colliculus and this provides a visual protective reflex. So it has also connection with the pre-tactile nuclei of both sides of cerebral hemisphere for direct and consensual pupillary light reflex. Later on you will know there are two types of reflex, light reflex and accommodation reflex. Proprioceptive sensation from the respective extraocular muscles are conveyed initially by peripheral fibers of third, fourth, and sixth cranial nerves. Thereafter, through the ophthalmic division of trigeminal nerve and its ganglion without interruption, and reach straight to the unipolar neurons of mesencephalic nucleus of trigeminal nerve in the midbrain. So you can see it has connection with the mesencephalic nucleus of trigeminal nerve also. Now, clinical correlation with the third cranial nerve. So number one is drooping of the upper eyelid, that is called ptosis. If levator palpebrae superioris is paralyzed, so there will be drooping of the upper eyelid, and that clinical condition is called ptosis. Second is lateral strabismus or lateral squint. It is due to paralysis of medial rectus muscle. So medial rectus and lateral rectus muscles are coordinated. When lateral rectus of right eye contracts, medial rectus of left eye also contract. So when medial rectus is paralyzed due to unopposed action of lateral rectus, eye will deviate towards the lateral side or towards the ear. So that is called squint or the lateral strabismus. So third clinical condition is dilated and fixed pupil, and it is due to paralysis of sphincter pupillae and so when there is paralysis of sphincter pupillae because of unopposed action of dilator pupillae, pupil will be dilated and it will be fixed. So fourth clinical condition is loss of accommodation. So due to paralysis of medial rectus, sphincter pupillae and ciliary muscle, there will be loss of accommodation. So fifth clinical condition is diplopia or double vision. So it occurs on looking medially, inferiorly and superiorly due to paralysis of medial rectus, inferior rectus and inferior oblique muscle. So sixth condition is proptosis or prominence of the eyeball due to relaxation of muscles of eyeball. So these are clinical correlation with the third cranial nerve. Then third cranial nerve is paralyzed. So this clinical condition you can see in patients. Now come to the fourth cranial nerve, that is the trochlear nerve. The fourth cranial nerve or trochlear nerve, it is purely motor nerve and it supplies only one muscle, that is superior oblique muscle of the eyeball. So this one is trochlear nerve. It arises from periaqueductal gray matter of midbrain at the level of inferior colliculus. It will enter the orbit through superior orbital fissure, and it will supply only one muscle, that is superior oblique of eyeball. So what are the unique features of trochlear nerve? So it is the only cranial nerve which emerges on dorsal aspect of the brain. Except trochlear nerve, remaining 11 cranial nerves emerge on ventral aspect of the brain. And this nerve is the most slender of all the cranial nerves. And it is smallest cranial nerve. It is the only cranial nerve cranial nerve whose nuclear fibers decussate or crossing over before emerging on surface of the brain. So there is decussation of trochlear nerve in the superior medullary velum. Its nucleus receives only ipsilateral corticonuclear fibers. So there is no connection of the opposite hemisphere. And phylogenetically, it is called nerve of third eye. So it is believed that it supplies pineal gland. So that's why phylogenetically the nerve also called nerve of the third eye. Now functional components and nuclei of the trochlear nerve. So it has only general somatic efferent fibers. Origin is from trochlear nucleus in the midbrain at the level of inferior colliculi, and it supplies only one muscle, that is superior oblique muscle of eyeball. Now, trochlear nerve, it arises from the dorsal aspect of midbrain, one on either side of frenulum veli. So after emerging from the brain, it winds around superior cerebellar and cerebral peduncle just above the pons. So this is the nuclear origin of trochlear nerve. It is in the periaqueductal gray matter of midbrain, ventral to aqueduct of Sylvius. Then it is passing backward, and there is so here is the crossing over or decussation at the superior medullary velum. It then passes between superior cerebral, posterior cerebral artery and superior cerebellar artery, lies on medial and below the free margin of tentorium cerebelli, enters the cavernous sinus by piercing posterior corner of its root. So thereafter it will pass through the superior orbital fissure enters into the orbit and supply the superior oblique muscle. In the cavernous sinus, it runs forwards in its lateral wall between third cranial nerve and the ophthalmic nerve. In relation to the cavernous sinus, it was already discussed. So in the anterior part of sinus, it crosses over the oculomotor nerve and becomes lateral to it, enters the orbit through superior orbital fissure, superolateral to the tendinous ring. It then runs medially above the levator palpebrae superioris to enter orbital surface of superior oblique that it supplies. Now, clinical correlation of the trochlear nerve. So if there is injury to the trochlear nerve, there will be paralysis of superior oblique muscle. So injury to trochlear nerve leads to paralysis of superior oblique muscle, and clinically it represents extorsion of the eyeball and weakness of downward gaze. So as a result, patient faces difficulty while going downstairs or reading newspaper. So there will be difficulty in looking downwards or reading a newspaper if there is paralysis of superior oblique muscle because of injury to the trochlear nerve. So another clinical condition is diplopia or double vision. And this occurs when a person looks laterally and in glances on looking downwards. So if a person looking downwards and laterally, if there is injury to the trochlear nerve, there will also be diplopia or double vision. And this is compensated by the patient head tilting to the opposite side. By tilting head to the opposite side, the patient try to compensate the diplopia. Now, sixth cranial nerve is abducens nerve. This nerve is purely motor nerve and it supplies only one muscle, that is the lateral rectus. So it is so named because it abducts the eye. It was also called lover's nerve because of abduction of eye towards the ear. The unique feature of sixth cranial nerve, this nerve is the most susceptible to damage of all the cranial nerves during increased intracranial pressure. So if there is increased intracranial pressure, sixth cranial nerve is the most susceptible to damage. So functional components and nuclei of abducens nerve. So it has general somatic efferent fibers arise from abducens nucleus in the lower part of pons, and these fibers supply only the one muscle, that is lateral rectus. And there is general somatic efferent fibers afferent fibers terminate in the mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. If you see the course and relations and distribution of abducens nerve, it arises at the lower border of pons, opposite the pyramid of the medulla, It runs upwards, forwards, and laterally dorsal to the anterior cerebellar artery. Then it pierces the durameter over the clevus, inferolateral to the dorsum scelli. So then it passes through the cavernous sinus. So thereafter, superior orbital fissure. Then it supply the lateral rectus muscle. So if there is injury to the abducens nerve, and this injury or lesion occurs because of increased intracranial pressure. So if there is increased intracranial pressure, nerve is stressed due to descent of the brainstem. Consequently, the nerve is cut by sharp bony edge of the petrous temporal bone. So paralysis of the lateral rectus following injury to the abducens nerve leads to squint, so that is convergent squint, due to unopposed action of the medial rectus. So if the right lateral rectus is paralyzed because of unopposed action of right medial rectus, the pupil or anterior pole of the eyeball will be directed towards the nose or nasal side, and there will be inability to abduct the eye. The action of lateral rectus is abduction of the eye, and there will also be diplopia or double vision with maximum separation of two images while looking towards the paralyzed side. So if right lateral rectus is paralyzed, the person is trying to look towards the right ear or right lateral vision, so there will be diplopia or the double vision. So normally both the black part of the eyeball is directing towards horizon anteriorly, but here you can see one eye is deviated towards the right ear. So here right medial rectus is paralyzed. So because of unopposed action of the right lateral rectus, eye is deviated towards the ear. It is called lateral squint. Now if the lateral rectus is paralyzed because of unopposed action of the medial rectus, so here you can see the black portion of the eye is directing towards the nose. So because of unopposed action of this muscle, so there will be medial or lateral squint. Now muscles of two sides, they are acting together. So these are called yoked muscles. So lateral rectus of the left eye, when contracts, medial rectus of the right eye will also contract. So contracting together, so they are called yoked muscle. Similarly, if the muscles of right eye, the medial rectus is contracting, lateral rectus of the left eye will also contract. So similarly, these superior rectus and inferior oblique of opposite eye contract together. Inferior oblique and superior rectus of both eyes contract together. Inferior rectus and superior oblique will contract together. Superior oblique of one eye and inferior rectus of other eye will contract together. So this action is together called yoked muscle. Now, how would you test the extraocular muscle? To test the function of superior oblique muscle, you will ask the subject to adduct the eye and look downwards. To see the action of inferior oblique, ask the patient to adduct and then elevate the eyeball. To test the lateral rectus, ask the patient to look laterally. For medial rectus, ask the patient to look medially. Superior rectus, as it elevates and abducts the eyeball, the patient is asked to abduct and then elevate the eyeball. The action of inferior rectus is abduction and depression of the eyeball. So, if you ask the patient to abduct and depress the eyeball, if the patient can do, the inferior rectus is acting normally. And levator palpebris superioris muscle, the patient is asked to raise the upper eye. If there is paralysis of levator palpebris superioris, upper eyelid will be drooping downwards. That condition clinically called ptosis or drooping of the eyelid. So earlier classes, extraocular muscles discussed along with the nerve supply and actions. And today these nerves are discussed along with the clinical correlations. So if you have any questions, you can ask.